Hey, it's Mark Lanier with your video thought for the day, start of a brand new week. And this week, by special request, I've been asked to look at various women of the Bible. Well, not look at the women, but in the video thought, talk about various women of the Bible. I guess that's the way to say it. And so I thought I'd start this week off with a just fantastic woman character in the Bible. Her name is Ruth. Now, there's an entire book dedicated to the story of Ruth. It's called Ruth, appropriately. It's a 4-chapter book in the Old Testament that kind of is like reading a play almost. Maybe not a play, maybe more a novel, but it's really cool the way it breaks out into 4 different acts. And each chapter is really an act unto itself. Ruth is a story of a woman who's not Jewish. There's a Jewish family that, because of famine, has had to leave Bethlehem, where they lived and worked, and gone over to the Moabite territory, Moab. And Ruth is a Moabitess. She's a woman, a young woman in Moab, who marries into this family. Now, marrying into the Jewish family, she seems happy, life is good, but her husband dies. And so does his brother. And so does the husband of the father figure for the family that moved over there. Bottom line is it leaves only the widow, the Jewish widow Naomi, and her 2 daughter-in-laws, one of whom is Ruth. Well, they decide time to go back. They need to go back to Bethlehem, to where they're from. And only Ruth is the one who goes back. The other daughter-in-law stays back to stay with her people and her tribe and try to find life. And we don't know what happens to her. She drops out of the story. But Ruth comes back, and Ruth is initially sent out into the field to kind of do some cleanup work and get some of the grain that's left around the edges of the fields of someone who is sort of related to her ex-father-in-law, who's now deceased. And so Ruth does so, and in the process, ultimately the love story unfolds, and he marries her. His name is Boaz. He marries her, and they have children, and actually she becomes the great-grandmother of King David. It's a really cool story. So I look at this story and I look at Ruth, and what I want to talk about today is this Hebrew concept of chesed. Chesed is translated love, it's translated loyalty, it's faithfulness, it's to a covenant, it's permeates the story of Ruth. Let me tell you why. 3 ways. Well, actually more than that, but 3 I'll talk about. First, Ruth demonstrates her own loyalty, her own faithfulness to the covenant, her own love for her mother-in-law. When her mother-in-law says, "You widows, go, you're still young, find another husband," Ruth says to her mother-in-law, "Wherever you go, there you'll find me. Your people are my people. Your God is my God." And she stays loyal to her covenant and has this intense trait of faithful loyalty and love and devotion. It's incredible. And then as you go to the next act, you find Boaz, who's a kinsman redeemer. And by that, I mean he is a kinsman to the deceased father-in-law, Naomi's husband, but he's also someone who exercises the obligation under the law to marry and take care of and provide offspring for the young widow. And it was the situation under Jewish law, and he does that. And how he does it is beautiful, because it's not simply an obligation, but it's something that's an act of mercy and kindness and graciousness far beyond what he had to do. Very much like Ruth's was to her mother-in-law. It's this gracious desire to do a covenant, not because you're under the thumb, Mick Jagger, but because you just have this heart of appreciation and love and gratitude. And then you see a third level of this, because God is working all of this time to fulfill his promises and his prophetic word and bring out of this King David. So it's a marvelous story, the story of Ruth. It's a story that unfolds, and Ruth demonstrates for us the very love and loyalty and going above and beyond trait of God himself as she unfolds in this story and receives those blessings from God that fall from her faithfulness. So I'm looking at this story today of Ruth, and I'm inspired. I want to have mercy upon people. I want to have love towards people. I want to go above and beyond the call of duty, and I want to demonstrate the character of our God by the way I keep my word and try to be as right as I can with people. More women tomorrow, but that's your video thought for the day.